What's up, Tank Nation? I'm finished. I'm done editing. It's chapter 3 time. Tour of Khundan. It's race day. I think you're gonna dig this. All right, here we go. It's that time. Tour of Khundan in Nayok, Thailand. The race is getting ready to start. We're all lining up. We had a big heat in the 50 plus, 79 riders. There was a 60 plus cat right behind us, and now it's time. So let's talk strategy here while we get going, because, you know, I went to Thailand never having raced in an international race before. There wasn't anyone else from CRZ with me, and so my goal in this effort was really to try to find the guys in my group that I could ride with. I didn't know what the average speeds were going to be. I had assumed that they would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 kilometers an hour on an average, and it ended up being a little bit more than that. But that's something I knew I could do, and so it was just a matter of trying to figure out where that is. Now, you gotta think about these kinds of things. Let's say you're going to a race, right, and you've got no one else with you. So you've got to have a plan before you ever start pushing those pedals. And my plan was to not do a tremendous amount of work, so that I could be fresh, hopefully for the end. I knew this was going to be a hilltop finish, so the whole race, in all likelihood, is going to come down to the final just under 2 kilometers, right up to the top of that dam. So ideally, you kind of find who you can ride with, you stay out of the wind, you conserve your energy, and you get after it. And that was sort of my main goal. Now, you guys know me, you've been watching now for a couple years. That is not necessarily my strong suit. In other words, being patient and hanging out, kind of in the back and everything, which is probably the smarter thing to do. Yeah, it didn't quite work out that way. Before you knew it, we weren't even 1.5 kilometers away from the start. I found myself kind of with the front group. But this was a group that I could ride with, so I wasn't concerned. Getting your legs warmed up, I stayed kind of tucked in and thought, okay, well, let's just see where this goes. And we got to see what's happening. We got to start reading the race, reading body language, seeing if these guys in front are going to stay in front. Are they going to move themselves to the back in an effort to conserve? And the other side of it is, what if they get going faster? Am I going to be able to keep up with them, or should I just really hold back and try to jump back into the group down the road, whatever the case may be? So a lot of things going through my mind at this point, and I knew that, but at the same time, here I am now slotted in 3rd place in the group, in the stack, and I felt fine. I felt really comfortable. I had great legs. I had done a nice practice loop the day before, and so I felt good about where I was at this particular point of the race. So you can see that we are rolling down here. The group at this point is still pretty much together. Now, the roads have basically been closed, so that's why you see the peloton kind of spread out. There was no reason to get super tight just yet, but we were starting to pick up speed. At this point, we were definitely over 40 kilometers per hour, and just watching what guys were doing. Was there going to be some organization? You can probably see off in the distance just a little bit that there's a group already, so we're in chase 2. Okay, so we're out now, and we're 7K in, 38 average. Really good to ride with guys.
riders. So it's exciting. Yeah, here we go.
So this stretch in here is basically straight. We're kind of running through on a main road. You can see we're moving pretty good now. The road is closed, so we have it all to ourselves basically, with the exception of some observers. And then we make a right-hand turn, and this is where we start kind of making our loop happen. Again, the speed stays about the same. But you can start to see that some of the speed is taking its toll, and our videographer kind of got stuck at the back. Up at the front though, we're already starting to catch some of the riders that were in the previous wave. So I know at that point that we're definitely running at a good pace. When we start picking up stragglers that have gone out in the waves that were ahead of us, you know you're moving. But nevertheless, I've got a turn here at the front, and so I don't mind being at the front. This is what we do at CRZ. Those of you that have been paying attention and watching me the last couple of years, you know, I've been in a development program where I'm learning how to do some heavy lifting as a domestique, and you know, pulling from the front is where I feel very comfortable. You know, this guy took over, and so I had no problem slotting behind him because we didn't change the pace. So at this point, you know, I'm just going to be patient. I'm going to ride his wheel, and you can see how our peloton is now getting stretched out pretty good. So then we turn off that road. Now we're going to start heading back into more rural type roads and streets, and this is where, to be fair, the ride gets very pretty. But we're not too far away now from where we're going to start our first climb, and that's going to create another separation for sure. So the guy coming into view here is Cesar Rodriguez, and he's one of the Filipino men that I met there straight away. Just welcomed me with open arms, and it was just great to be able to have fun with him in this race. And he kind of got some cramps, and so he just took his time, made sure he finished, but he had a great race overall for sure. So having my videographer with me ended up being a really big benefit because there just wasn't, you know, much coverage out on the road. Most of their photographers were located at the race finish, you know, for the climb and that sort of thing, which is understandable. This is a 72-kilometer racetrack. But being able to capture this video and looking back on it during the editing process, you know, it was just amazing to just see this many guys out there in the 50-plus category, you know, getting after it, having fun, all the different bikes, all the different types of people. It was just really, really cool to see. And so, you know, riding with all of these guys and this kind of thing, you know, there's an automatic bonding that takes place, you know, for sure. And now as we're getting ready to come up on that first climb, you know, everyone's kind of getting their heads wrapped around it, and the pace starts to pick up. And again, it was always going to pick up. You know, I think in any race there's a natural attrition of guys that, you know, are going to move their way toward the front, other guys that are going to kind of be in the middle, and other guys that are, you know, they're just there to enjoy themselves, have fun, and be part of the event. All of those things are acceptable. All of those things make these types of events happen and make them special. So it was really cool to see and, of course, be a part of it. So, spoiler alert, we are here now on the first climb, and these two guys are out of our category, and that was your first and second place. This is where they broke free of the group, and to be honest, we never really saw them again after this, and they were really, really fast. So, everyone now, you know, is sort of trying to figure out what comes next. Of course, the reality is we're all racing for third place or whatever at that point. So, you know, when you're in a race and you know the course and you know your strengths, you know, this is where you apply that understanding and methodology. And these two guys, who were both European guys, one of them, I believe, was a champion in cyclocross somewhere, I believe, in Europe. And, you know, they took off and they set a blistering pace. You know, that's how it works out sometimes, and you got to know when to make your break, and if you can go, and if you can't, then you got to come up with a different strategy. So we're rolling through an area where there was a water station, and so most of the group that I'm in now decided to kind of sit up a little bit, take on some nutrients, you know, that kind of stuff. I have a little mix that I make that I've used now since Ironman, mount my own triathlon, you know, Titan 77.7, stuff like that. So I had that with me just so I could get a little energy boost while we were in the middle of this ride. But yeah, so now we're off, we're over halfway, and it's looking good.
Okay, so just over halfway now. We're in the backside of the course. It's hilly. It's shady, which is super nice. But really strong group. There's a Danish rider that has already gone off on the front. He's really strong. You can't even see him. So just got to hang in there now. See what happens on the second half of the race. Should be fun.
So we're rolling up. I wouldn't really call this the second climb. I don't believe the grade ever got over maybe 3 or 4% max. But you know, it definitely is one of those kind of tester things where you want to make sure you're keeping your pace up. You definitely don't want to sprint up something like this because we're really far from the finish line still. The biker that just went in front here is Ronan. Ended up meeting him after the race. Really nice guy. We actually traded a lot of work in the race together, going back and forth with him in front and me behind him and vice versa. So it's always great when you kind of feel like you've got a connection with someone like that, and they can do some of the heavy lifting with you. So I just stayed with Ronan on his wheel. and followed him around this corner. And I knew from the race preview the day before on this particular route that this is going to be a nice downhill. I love downhills. Ronan swings out of the way here, kind of looking over his shoulder, and I take over and start bombing down the course. So I'm happy to do it, and it's always fun. I live for the speed, there's no question about that. And yeah, so it's time to tear after it, get down this hill, and then it gets flat for a little while until we get to our next climb. Alright, so this left-hand turn is going to take us up to the next climb. If we had gone straight there, we would have been on the mountain bike route and the executive cycling route. So now we're turning and going a little bit deeper into the hills, and this climb will be a little bit of a tester. It didn't get super steep, I think right around 7 or 8%, but it was an extended grade, so there was quite a big ramp getting there. And it definitely kind of put the screws to you know, some of the guys that were still trying to be in that front group for sure. So this part of the course was a little bit more rural. You can see that we're just on a 2-lane road, but it was beautiful. And probably the best part for me was that it was shaded. Which meant that I wasn't going to get too hot, you know, keep up the pace, still do the work that we need to do, and not overheat, which is nice. And I think that's something that I was really excited about after I did the course read the day before. I thought, okay, well, I know there's going to be some sections where I can still push myself, but I'm not going to get overheated doing it. And the other thing was that it wasn't super sunny till just about the end of the race. We kind of had some overcast in the morning, and so that worked out really well for all of us. Okay, so this is the second main climb. Again, it's not a huge super steep climb, you know, 7-8%, but it was a fairly long ramp to get up this hill. And I'm slotted in behind Ronan as I have been, and you know, he's setting a pretty good pace, and some other guys are, you know, going to start pushing by us. Now, because I know where we are on the race course, I know that I don't have to kill myself here. I don't have to try to keep up with these guys. There's no king of the mountain points or anything like that silly. So, you know, for me, I just have to make sure I kind of do what I know I'm good at. Yes, I can climb. I don't mind going up steep grades, but I also don't need to put myself into the red on something that really doesn't matter right now. I'm not worried about getting passed by 15-20 guys because I know I can ride back onto them the minute we get to the flats. And so, you know, there's a bunch of guys that go by me, and that's okay. So once we get over the hill, though, you know, that's where everything changes. Gravity's my friend. There are some benefits to being 85 kilos, of course, and so I just get in a good position and you know, start running down this hill. Now, again, because I know where I'm at on the race course, I'm not super worried. So I'm not going to push myself to get back into the group. I'm just going to ride a normal pace that's comfortable for me, and you know, and I'll gradually build back into that. One of the things that I've learned over the last 2 years in racing is, you know, you have to manage that energy output. And part of managing that energy is, you know, you can build speed slower without having to do a lot of damage to you. And that oftentimes, especially when you know where you're going and what you're doing, makes a big difference in how you can manage that effort. So you can still go faster, you can still catch up to guys, you can get back onto the lead groups and things like that, but you don't do it at the expense of the rest of the race. So we've come down this hill now, and you can see, everybody's kind of bunching up again. Again, the roads are basically closed. So I don't remember ever passing a car on this particular section, and now we're back onto another climb. So again, I'm not worried here because this didn't do anything. This was going to be the last climb that we were on prior to the end of the race. Again, 7-8% grade, nothing too crazy, but there was just no reason for me to get really excited about putting in a big effort. So I just found a nice pace that I could maintain, and you're going to see me click back into that pace here in 1 second, and I'll sit back down, and that was good enough. That was a pace that I could maintain, and I'm not worried about who's passing me, because I know on the back side of this hill it's a decent roll off, and so I'll just catch back up to the group in an organic way that allows me to conserve my energy and still be strong. So now we've come over the top. It's basically going to be flat from here out until we get to the end of the race where, it's going to be hilltop finish. And I know that, so knowing that we've got 30 plus kilometers to go, knowing that I don't need to, really accelerate here, allows me to conserve some more energy, and I just gradually build my speed back up as I pull myself back into the main group. And you're going to see it doesn't take very long. The main group was not going to accelerate tremendously either. Once we got back on the flats, that's where everything kind of levels back out, and guys that might have accelerated just to get over the climb faster start falling back into place again. And so, I just take my time, rolling off one rider after another as I move back to the front group. But again, I know what to expect, and so I know how to manage that effort so that I don't hurt myself in terms of my energy output, and I can manage this effort while we go through it. Alright, for those of you that watched Chapter 2, I kind of shared with you that I got lost. Of course, I didn't have anyone to ride with when I did the course read the day before, and so I tried to follow the signs that I knew were up because of Facebook page postings. And then all of a sudden we come around the corner and boom, we're on top of this earth dam, and there's this beautiful reservoir right here off to my left hand side, and I mean, I was just blown away. I didn't get to ride this the day before, and the reason I got lost was the road was closed to go here. They only opened it up for us to use for the bike race on the morning of, and so it was just a huge fantastic surprise to be able to come around the corner. We went up a ridiculously steep grade. I mean, it went from like no grade to 14% almost immediately, but very short, maybe 50-60 meters, and then all of a sudden you pop around the corner and you're on top of this dam. So really cool surprise, and yeah, it's just picturesque. I mean, everywhere you looked up there was like a big postcard. So very cool and a lot of fun. bit crazy because you're coming off the dam and then you go into this super tight hairpin turn, and it was a little bit rough. The road was wet coming down, and I didn't know this, but behind me there ended up being a small accident. Everybody was okay, so no major injuries, but I think 3 or 4 guys went down because the front guy's tire slipped out, which would have been, makes perfect sense. It would have been really easy to do. I actually hit the brakes pretty hard going around that turn just to make sure that I had control of the bike. And then this is the flat spot, so we're done. There's no more climbing now until we get to the end of the race, and the pace picked up almost immediately. And I don't know if this was a planned jump, but you know, you never know. Not knowing any of these guys, you know, I'm not sure who's who and who's capable of just taking off and not being caught again. And so my goal at this point was, you know, get back with these front guys, you know, stay there, stay on the wheel, and make sure that I'm part of whatever's happening. You know, that's the most important thing at that point, because like I said, when you don't have anyone with you, you have no one to share the workload with. The best thing you can do is, again, pick riders that you feel comfortable riding with, that are going to roll at a pace you can roll with, without, you know, putting yourself into the red zone, and just, you know, kind of hang on. And that's where I'm at this point in the race. I'm thinking to myself, well, I know we're inside of 30 kilometers and pace is picked up, and so I'm just going to get up here and, you know, again, I find myself at the front taking a turn. And I like being at the front because it allows me to control the tempo. And that's the other reason, you know, that I have this as part of my strategy, is that if I'm up front, that means whatever speed I set, everyone else is going to try to maintain. So I get into a nice aero position, something that I can maintain the effort on and just keep pushing. And yeah, ends up working out pretty well. Okay, so you can see right there, we've now made the turn. We're back on the main road that we started the race on, and so there's not going to be any turning or anything until we get to the bottom of the dam and start that climb. So at this point, it's just kind of that time trial mentality where you're going to maintain a certain pace, you're probably going to spend some time at the front, or get slotted in behind someone while they maintain that pace, but this is it. So there's no question at this point. I mean, I'm feeling it. You know, we're not too far from the finish line. We've been pushing really hard. You know, this was definitely a big effort for me. There's no question about that. I was really excited, of course, to be able to compete in this event. But it definitely tested me. And 72 kilometers of basically pretty much going about as fast as you can. It was a big challenge, and there were a lot of great riders in our group, and so I felt really privileged to be a part of this particular flight, because anytime I see the guys that, you know, are my contemporaries, you know, that are in their 50s just like I am, and they're still out here competing, pushing themselves, challenging themselves, it just really renews my inspiration that I get from so many of you guys that I meet when I'm out on my rides and in the events. So this was just a carryover. I was just in a different country, and these guys were still bringing it, still chasing it, and that was fun. So I'm out front. I have no problem being out front. I love it. And Ronan's there behind me, and we're getting down to like 15 kilometers to go. So the pace is starting to pick up a little bit. Not too much though, because again, everybody in this group knows it's going to be a hilltop finish. So there's almost no point spending yourself here, but we definitely are going to maintain the pace, no question. So this was kind of an interesting part of the ride. It felt like, you know, it was getting more intense, of course, and people were sort of jockeying around. I'm not really sure why this one rider jumped out to the far right. It didn't look like he was trying to make a breakaway move, but nevertheless, you know, he was out there. So we just maintained. There is a slight gradient here, but it's not much. You see the rider jumps back in, so I'm not sure what that was all about. But nevertheless, you know, we just kept rolling, kept pushing, and yeah, so it's time to get after it. You know, we know that the end is not too far away, and so it's important to just stay focused. And again, right now, you know, whatever you've got left in the tank, so to speak, you know, whatever tank's got left in the tank, you gotta conserve. There's just no point accelerating right now. You're not going to outrun this big group of guys. Everyone that you see in this particular group here was pretty strong. So again, first and second place already done. That's already taken care of. Everyone in this group is thinking about, you know, third and top 10 and all that kind of stuff. So my job right now is just to keep my head straight and make sure that I'm part of this action, and then see what happens. So Ronan was kind enough to swing over and get his 30 seconds in the spotlight, and yeah, so here we are at the end of the race, and he's got all kinds of energy for that stuff. So I'm a little bit worried, because I was like, oh, but you can see that, you know, just a little jump like that, you know, if this were a group of guys, you know, if Ronan and I were on the same team or something like that, you can just see that a little surge like that can just boom open a gap, and that'll fracture a group. And if you can maintain it, well, then that can be something pretty special. But in this case, we slowed back down, got back into our rhythm, and got ready for the end.
Okay, inside 10K now. It's been a pretty fast race. It's all going to come down to the final climb. It's up on top of the dam. So let's try to conserve right now, relax a little bit, stay covered, and see if I can get my legs back for the final climb.
So here we go. This is it. This is the last turn onto the straight that will lead us to the roundabout, where we will kind of veer to the left and we will start the uphill. And like I said, the final uphill is just under 2 kilometers long, and so it's going to be pretty fast and furious. The pace definitely picks up here. If this had been a flat finish, who knows what would happen. I mean, we got going really fast here. But as we come through around the corner, there's kind of this straightaway that you can see here now, and this is where everyone really starts to accelerate. I mean, I think at one point we were doing over 48, 49 kilometers an hour, and that was a left-hand turn. So you go from that turn right onto the climb. You can see it right there, and it just juts up. So you hit that 8%, 9% grade almost immediately. And of course you're in like max effort mode, but you just came off a flat, so there was no real ramp here, and that's kind of what makes this particular effort really hard. But it's basically like turning into sort of a climbing bunch sprint, which was just insane.
Well, here we are, almost to the top. Fun time. Woo. Oh, good stuff. I had a feeling those little guys were gonna wait to the end. I was right. Yeah. Okay, so here we are, end of the stage. Woo.
I got cramps the last 20.
Oh. All right. Here we go. Oh, thank you. Here we are. It's finished. Bib 273, 72 kilometers. Average is 37.3 kilometers per hour and 19 out of 79 contestants. So I was really happy with top 20. There were some really fast guys in this group, so that's all I can ask for. It wasn't about a podium or anything crazy. It was about having fun and meeting new people. Okay, so that's it. It's a hilltop finish, so the fun part is you got to go back down the hill.